What's up, everyone? It is 2 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon, which means you're tuning in to Cannabis Legalization News. It is also Tom's birthday eve, so happy birthday, Tom.
Big 4-0, man. I did it. I didn't die.
How's it feeling?
You just feel old. Everything, like, sugar doesn't taste as sweet anymore. I'm kidding. I feel great, actually, to be honest. Very, very fortunate to be celebrating 40 tomorrow. And so we don't do the show on Thursdays at 2. So we came on today to do kind of like an AMA, and we have maybe about 10 questions from some people. And then after this show, I have a date with the post office. And so we have 3 books for people that wrote in at, you can get me, Tom, at collateralbase.com. Send me your email. Email me a question that you want us to answer on the show. And if we answer that question on the show, I will send you a book. So then also do give us your address.
Hey, nice shirt, dude.
Yeah. Richard Pryor is from Peoria. And so he's a local boy that did good. And he also has Blistering Satire, which is still relevant today.
For real, though. I mean, I'm going to share this little thing there for you guys if I can not fuck it up. Hey, look at that. I didn't mess it up.
Nice.
Craig Cecil's free. He's a lifer, a marijuana lifer.
He's one of the lifers. And so he's free, huh?
Yeah. Well, he's at home confinement. I mean,
did he get out because of COVID?
I believe so.
Home confinement, at least he can be home and see his family, as opposed to being in a box.
Yeah, well, his story, too, is his son died behind bars while he's been behind bars. His dad died. I mean, luckily right there with his daughter. That's an amazing thing. Did you see and more? So that's the good news.
That is some good news. That's some good news in cannabis legalization news, man.
Did you see this bullshit, though, man, with this Tennessee lawmaker?
No. Tennessee lawmaker blocked resolution to honor murdered teen over alleged marijuana sale. That guy is on the wrong side of history, but,
Listen, I mean, if we can, it's just public, right? Listen to this shit.
It's public domain. This is C-SPAN. So C-SPAN doesn't necessarily have, we have more of a Creative Commons license there.
Well, it's politics too, right? This is policy. And
public speech.
It tears me apart. People wonder why Black Lives Matter is important to say, or why it doesn't make anything lesser. Listen to this guy.
What led to this young lady's untimely demise, and due to the behavior and I will say choices that she was involved in
for fucking weed,
I cannot in good conscience vote in favor of this. I rise to apologize to her family and friends and say that I do feel in my heart that I wish I could support this resolution.
One guy.
But I simply cannot.
In his heart.
The activity she was involved in that led
the activity.
Because of marijuana.
She was buying weed. And then he goes on to say, I'm willing to sign a petition to defend her family or to support her family, but not her. And
because she uses marijuana and a bad person.
Yeah,
that's not good. That's bad news. There was some good news though. On the marijuana moment was reporting Louisiana Governor John Bell Edwards signed a bill that will let patients get medical marijuana for any debilitating condition their doctor sees fit. So that is a very large opening to the medical cannabis market in Louisiana. And so we're going to have to go down and look in Louisiana so that we can see where and how you can get your medical card in Louisiana, how you can become a medical cannabis dispensary in Louisiana, and how you can become a medical cannabis grower in Louisiana.
I wonder if in Louisiana they'll see reduction of crime because that's, New Orleans. Alcohol consumption, it's popular. It's that was
like Illinois has turned into New Orleans in the sense that now you can get cocktails to go because of COVID. And so it's not like New Orleans as much where, it's just a roving cocktail party and you can take the cocktail and just walk to the next bar like you can in New Orleans. But we did have some other pretty good news. And so here's some big news out of Illinois. Big news out of Illinois is we know Toy Hutchinson, friend of the show, we've got to get her on eventually. She has mentioned that the dispensary licenses are due to come in mid-July. And then in September will be craft grow infuser transporters coming in August. And so that's great. We've put in a lot of apps for a lot of these people, and we can't wait to see what's going to happen. But the mid-July number basically we're a month out. So we're essentially a month out from us knowing who won and who lost in Illinois for your adult use dispensaries. And there's still a few roving 10-day notices out there. I know, friends of the show that have called in, and I've helped them. And so it's great that we're still scoring the app, and hopefully the apps will be done scoring by the end of the month. And then there's going to be this tie-breaking stuff that's going to really be exciting and crazy because, at the end of the day, it appears that you can do your best, and then you have to come down to a roll of a dice.
Well, what's funny is you're seeing the behind the scenes. It's like the whole act of rewriting things and new legislation and regulation coming out before the stores have been open, right? But me as a consumer, I'm more excited about when those doors open because then there's going to be a whole culture evolving around your recreational scene. You're going to have
not just the dispensaries. It's going to be the culture that's going to happen after the grows come out. And for example, Richard Hefferman just asked us, how many plants can I grow in Illinois? And I am going to give the most lawyer answer ever. It depends. Who are you? Are you a medical patient? Are you at your residence? Do you own the residence? Then 5. And you have to grow them correctly in the sense that you're a medical patient. You grow them in an enclosed, locked space, and it is not visible from the street. In theory, you'd be able to use a greenhouse to be able to do this. And not only that, I kind of go into that more in this. This is a page that's kind of burning up the SEO. And so tomorrow you can go to this page now, but tomorrow I'll actually publish this Illinois weed laws review. And that's something that I was doing yesterday. And so you're going to have more of an overview of what happens right there. And and so after that, let's more cannabis legalization news. I didn't show this. And so some people ask well, how can I get a book? You can email me, or you can go to shadyhousepub.com. This is the name of the publishing company that me and a friend of mine started when I was in law school. And there you can get a copy of the State and Smoke book. We do have, let's see here. Let me just remove that. And we're going to Joliet, Orchard Park, New York, and the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia.
Nice.
So those will be going out in the mail. And if anybody else wants one, please do get your question to me at Tom at Collateral Base. We ask it on the air, or we answer it on the air, and then we will send you a book. And so here's one. How many transporter licenses do you expect? 50, 60, a lot. I think
is there going to be a cap on that at all? Nope. Just like you have growers and producer caps?
Nope. It's wide open. You just have to get over a certain percentage of the points, and then you win.
Oh, geez.
So hopefully I'm assuming there's going to be a lot, but then it's going to be how do you differentiate yourself? And it's really not a ripe business model until approximately 12 months after the craft growers win, because you have about 6 months to build out for your craft growers. And then this is one of the bad things, because if it's craft grow in September, okay, we have a problem with the craft grow in September. Because if you have craft grow and then the regulations say you have to be open in 6 months, full production. We have this thing in Illinois called winter.
Yeah.
And so we're a little different than Seattle. We get what they call froze out. So you're not really supposed to be pouring concrete when it's negative 20, like in February, for example.
Oh, right.
And so, right. Oh, and then what's going to probably happen is they're going to have to continue that. So if they announce winners for grows in September, and it's 6 months to build out, that puts us into March, which is impossible because of winter construction. Yeah. And then you have approximately 5 more months while you get your perpetual harvest methodologies up to snuff, and you maybe fail a couple of rounds, and then you get your flowering capacity up to hopefully about 100 to 110 pounds every 2 weeks. And then that takes time. So it might be another 5 months before you're actually shipping flower, which means that you can win your transportation license here in August and really not have any customers until about next August.
Now, is transportation just from grow to store?
Yep.
Okay.
It's like a liquor distributor. They just go, they pick it up from the brewery, they take it to the bars and the other places that have a liquor license to sell.
Well, what about delivery?
Oh, delivery. That is actually, I think, one of the questions that we had from one of the audience members on the AMA. We kind of put out a vibe about this. So the delivery aspect in Illinois, there is a bill, an amendment. I shouldn't call it bill. There's a bill, and then after it's law, then you have amendments. And so there's an amendment to the CRTA out there that would allow the dispensaries to then have the ability to do delivery. So that's how it is in Florida. Of course, Florida has a unified license. That is how it is in LA. So no weed dispensaries in California have, and then the delivery is always tied to the dispensing.
Right. So like no weed Postmates where I can't just be like, I'm a service, an Angel Service. Actually, I think Angel Service is in LA where they, it's a bunch of women that pick it up from dispensaries and bring it to locals. So there are people.
Again, it's a fairly gray area. So it's one of those things with, because we have a couple of questions for some viewers here that we'll talk about here in a bit. I just wanted to show everybody that, and then we'll talk about that in a while, and then also that. And so, yeah, I guess we can get into some of the AMA stuff. So if you guys do have any questions that are watching it, and there's about 32 of us, please do ask the questions regarding cannabis law in the bottom or wherever you're watching it, Facebook, YouTube.
Well, the first one's asked if you can get in trouble for weed shipments in the mail.
Weed shipments in the mail. Can you get in trouble for weed shipments in the mail, card or not? That's going to depend. Okay, let's talk about like the differences between shipping at UPS versus shipping at USPS. Now, the United Postal Service, the United Parcel Service, that's UPS, is different than the United States Postal Service. One of them, you have Fourth Amendment protections because it's a state actor. The other one, you don't. And so when you ship privately, you risk inspection more than if you ship using the United States Post Office.
But it's a federal entity, so it doesn't make it federal?
It's a federal entity. That's right. But that still means that you have the rights against unreasonable search and seizure of your stuff. And so because of that, provided that it's, you don't have like fragile marijuana buds on the outside and it's just not reeking, or you're not being flagrant in the sense that, it's legal to have an ounce in Illinois, right? So can I mail you 7/8 of an ounce? I could check the law that there might be an express prohibition against, please do not be mailing 7/8 of an ounce of cannabis to people in Illinois. But in theory, like if I'm gifting it to you and I'm using, I'm like, no, just some gifts, nothing. Because what do they always ask you at the post office? When I go, they're going to ask me anything flammable or batteries in that. And then these go media mail, which they do have the right to inspect then just to make sure that these are books and I'm not actually shipping this, and trying to get around the low postage for media as opposed to for like anything else.
So you can gift in Illinois then? Yeah,
you can gift up to the legal limit. And so you're allowed to do that. I can't gift it to somebody under 21, but I can gift to an adult, essentially the 20 or the full ounce. Let's see here. James Rice asks another one. How soon after award can a license sell in Illinois? So let's then say that you won your cannabis lottery because you made it into the lottery. So your dispensary application was very strong and you made the lottery. How long after you get the award of the license are you allowed to start selling cannabis? That depends. Again, hopefully you'd be able to do it within 6 to 12 months. You have 12 months in which that you must start. You have 6 months in which that you have to find a location. Illinois was good in the sense that they tried to keep the price down so that you did not have to have a physical location for your retail outlet. There was a lot of shakedown that happened during the medical because, there'd be like a non-refundable $10,000 security deposit or something like that.
Yeah, sure.
So those are gone, which is nice. Unless you're a grow, then you needed real estate. And so it's a little different in Illinois. How quickly could you feasibly do it if you had all your ducks in a row and the state, because the state has to say you can do it. So the state has to go in and be like, let me see all your security protocols. Let's see your floor plan that you put into the application because that's a condition. And so if everything works and the zoning has checked it and you get everything installed correctly, it's all ADA compliant, you have all the security cameras, everything's working. Sure, maybe you can get open in 6 months, maybe you can get open a little bit less, but because you have to have all those contractors that need to come in, And then you also have the state that needs to approve it, and you also have the municipality zoning that needs to approve it as well. Just all those layers and hoops that you have to jump through can make it take some time.
James asked another good question. He said, "How soon can you flip the license?"
That we don't necessarily know. There are some restrictions regarding the social equity. If they sell it, I believe within 2 years. For the craft growers, I believe they had to hold the license and they can't flip it in that instance for 2 years until like December of 2022, if I recall correctly. And yeah, I'm sure that some of the licenses are already up for sale.
Sure.
I mean, it's one of those things where if you win and then you turn around and sell it, you might make a quick $1 million or more.
I mean, isn't that the whole point? I mean, it's like when people say rock stars sell out, right? Like when I was younger, Metallica was never going to be on MTV, blah, blah, blah. But the whole point of doing what you're doing is so you can have some money, so you can have a little, the next level, whatever that is.
Yeah, there's that. Well, let's go to the question 2 from from the people that reached out to us. So can you start a bakery without having a grow house or dispensary first? Also, do I need residency to grow my medical marijuana? Is it possible to use an office space if permitted by the owner or building property manager?
Oh.
Well, we're going to have to unpack that. That sounds like it's at least 3 different questions. One of them is, can you start a bakery without having a grow or dispensary? No, maybe. If you have the infuser license. So let's say you have the infuser license and then you're going to make, the best cannabis muffins ever. And so that is your dream. You're amazing at making cannabis muffins. And so there you go. You have a bakery that can make infused cannabis products. If you have an infuser license, those are going to be announced in August. The infuser license was probably the easiest to get in the sense that it had the fewest competitors. The craft growers is probably the most competitive. Okay. The second part of that question is, does she need to have residency to grow medical marijuana in Illinois? I'm assuming it's Illinois. Yes. You cannot grow medical marijuana unless you are an Illinois resident, because you need to be an Illinois medical marijuana patient, and you're only allowed to grow it at your residence. So your second question is, can I use my office space? Is permitted by the owner or building manager to grow my medical cannabis? No. And that's something that I might support an amendment to the law. Because maybe you could have then like grow collectives, medical grow collectives. I think that would be better, as opposed to me trying to struggle and grow my own medicine and be like, well, tastes okay.
So Cannon Government, he doesn't. When I asked you about the gifting issue earlier, it's in the books, right? You're allowed to gift.
Yeah, you're allowed to gift up to your legal limits. I mean, you're not allowed to give. I can't give you like 2 ounces of marijuana. That's too much. But if I'm allowed to have an ounce, I think you are allowed to gift it. And I would direct my own attention to review to try to get the answer on this to Article 10 of the CRTA, because that's the one on personal use. You know what we haven't talked about, which was some good news that we got over this week for our Pennsylvania, like the Philadelphia. Yeah, we're going to have Senator Leach from Pennsylvania, the sponsor of SB 350 that we've done a lot of stuff on the show about, like the micro grower license. And we're going to talk with him about how we can try to start exporting this Illinois law so that you can build a large coalition in your legislature in whatever state that you have to pass it, because the ballot initiative states are pretty much done. Now it's going to have to be done in the legislature.
Oh.
And so we're going to talk with the Pennsylvania legislature about aspects of the Illinois law, and we're going to talk more about the Illinois law and its R3 and also its social equity low-income loan program here later on when I get to my birthday present part of the show. And so that's going to be a fascinating discussion to talk to where they're coming from, how the bill is stacking up, because their bill was small. It's only like 35 pages.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just not enough.
What? I just think, does it leave a lot of room for, entry? Is that what it's trying to do?
I don't know. I think you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. Cause what, like you said, in Florida, right? They kind of left some room at the end there, cause it was first non-flower and then they kind of a little wiggle room there. Like the whole not start with flower always
Oh yeah, that's a little different on how they did it in Florida. In Florida, because like we can read whatever Florida's ballot initiative is going to become, and then it's more like how they do in Washington State, where you pass this ballot initiative, and then the legislature's directed to kind of like beef up the aspects of it. So like right now, I could pull up Arizona's ballot initiative, and I bet Arizona's ballot initiative is in the ballpark of 20 pages. And so like it's just not as detailed as what we've done in Illinois. And so that's the downside of the ballot initiative states. So like it's just harder for them to like, especially if the amendment issue is supposed to be very, very small. So like in Missouri, for example.
Medical, though, that was brought by you guys via a ballot initiative, right?
Nope. No, it's legislative.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Like that. I'm sorry. That's what I was getting at. It's like, you guys, as legislation, created an infrastructure already because that's how your process is. The legislation has to put it out. Whereas ballot initiative is more like, hey, we the people want to get this pushed through. Kind of like with our home grow issue here, where we got it so far into the House and Senate. Then, of course, all the committee stuff, right? It's getting held up in all these committees. And
that's right.
Why are we holding this up?
That's one of the reasons why I want to talk to Senator Leach from Pennsylvania and be like, you see, it's only 35 pages. And like, oh, ours was 600. And there's a lot of social justice reform in it. So if you want to get a lot more supporters, explain to them how the money is going to be spent. Explain to them how the taxes are going to be raised. Tell them where it's going to go, how it's going to fix the community, how it's going to fix the problems of the drug war, which I'm assuming Pennsylvania's got almost 13 million people. Illinois got almost 12. There's clearly got to be people that were impacted by the drug war in Pennsylvania.
This trickle down theory of crime, from the beginning, right? Like from the beginning of Prohibition, it was like, all right, just the blacks and Hispanics were good because no white person's going to smoke weed and want to enjoy life. And
then all those Jews that were doing the jazz with all the black people in New York were smoking their cigarettes and they're like, this is great. And then, fast forward another 30 years and you got the hippies and the beatniks and everybody's like, oh, damn. And then Nixon, it was the counterculture. And so they were trying to wage war on the counterculture, which they kind of still do. I mean, like, it's still libtard. Come on. Like it's still libtard commie BS. They still wage war on, for example, don't you guys have something going on in Seattle where you just have like a precinct that doesn't have any police?
Yeah, well, so they took over 6 blocks right there in front of the precinct. And actually, I started a GoFundMe. Let me see if I can share it. And then, so what I want to do, I want to collect some money and give out free weed.
Is that legal?
I'm in a legal state.
Right.
But so here, actually, I won't go through all that crap. But the point is that the CHOP, which is now called the CHOP for Capitol Hill Occupation Protest.
Capitol Hill Occupation Protest. The CHOP.
Well, this is how smart we are, dude. Because originally it was called the Chaz, Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. Yeah, the widest name. Hey, Chet. But they're so smart though. These libtards put together a think tank. We're like, you know what? We don't want to take over the Black Lives Movement conversation. We just want to have an overall conversation. The defund the police situation. Let's re-examine where all the money goes, right? Because cops don't need bazookas or stingrays to hear my fucking phone call. They just don't. And so they took over 6 blocks. The conversation's going, and my happiness about the whole situation is fuck Trump, because he's been tweeting about it. He's been. It's a sore spot, and if other cities pick up on this and occupy one street, and maybe some other idiot like me is like, hey, I'm going to give you free weed just to stay there, because we're on day 18 of protests, and there hasn't been tear gas used in 6 days, and they took over a whole 6 blocks. So, we can live in this world together without, we don't need to be policed heavily all the time.
We need the police. We do not need the militarized police that is always sent out. Like if it's somebody who's got a mental health issue or if it's many other disturbances, they should not be just thrown to the police. And then why are they so militant? Why are they so violent?
Yeah, but why is you put a gun in someone's hand, then all of a sudden you got a heart on and no muscle because they got to shoot you instead of trying to handle the situation. You know what I mean?
That's that. Yeah, I like the peace officer aspect as opposed to law enforcement officer. The law enforcement officer is a judge. You know, that's who's really going to be sitting there enforcing the law. It's the district attorney who's going to be prosecuting your ass. The police officer, you know, I think that's more of a peace officer. Keep the peace. And yeah, you got to arrest somebody, arrest him for the crime. Then that guy's going to prosecute him. And then that judge over there is going to say whether or not they broke the law. And then you're going to enforce the law against them, you know?
Yeah, and here's the thing too: is the conversation is being swayed or twisted out here as far as like people outside of the state looking in. They see Antifa, but I've been called Antifa, but it's not. They're Americans, the citizens that are just saying, you know what, we are tired of this shit, and there's no time but now to change. Like we need change. Period. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, how many more videos of people dying since George Floyd died have popped up? Yeah. Yep. It's just beyond bullshit. Period.
Yeah, it is beyond bullshit, and it's just wrong what people think they can do and get away with, especially nowadays. You know, they don't care. I mean, like Donald Trump's a perfect example. He doesn't give a crap about what the law says. He thinks that he's above the law. Laws don't apply to him.
No, this is
it's wrong.
We need change. We're getting there. I mean, stuff has already happened. Boston's diverted $12 million from their police fund. I mean, that tells you right away, if you can divert $12 million from a program, you know, without blinking an eye. Apparently they don't need tanks this week. I'm just saying.
Why do they need tanks at all?
Exactly.
I don't get it. Can't the National Guard have the tanks? And then when the police need the tanks, they can call the National Guard, and then somebody can be like, what do you mean, tanks? Who invaded it? Antifa. Who's that?
It's about people. I mean, overall, as treating our citizens, our fellow man bullshit, right? Like as an, I guess I can abide by as an atheist or whatever, but I'm more Christian than half these people that say they're whatever. Because it's so downtown in that area, it's being taken over in the Chaz. I saw some left-wing propaganda where they're taking videos, and this guy's like, I saw a woman passed out in the park. This is a major city. You obviously weren't here 2 months ago because there's been people passed out in these parks all the time, but now
taking park naps for a while.
Heroin's a thing still in all these major cities. You know.
All right, we got another question to get to.
Yeah, let's go to the next shit.
This one is a little out of my wheelhouse. It's like more medical. Is there a way for me to obtain a recommendation / prescribing power like other medical positions, such as a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant? Preferably prescribing power, but I understand under the current scheduling that makes it very difficult at this time. Thank you, Jade the Dreamer, for your question regarding that. I'd always say let's look at what the statute provides. So let's see what the law says, who can make recommendations for medical cannabis. And that recommendation for medical cannabis would then have to come from somebody, and it may say like primary care physician, or it might just say doctor, or in this case, she's wondering if nurse practitioners or physician's assistants would also be able to write not scripts, but recommendations for medical cannabis. And I don't oppose, like if a physician's assistant or a nurse practitioner, you know, they have to get a lot of education. And if they understand, and again, it's writing a recommendation for medical cannabis is different than prescribing pills. Like what you're doing is federally illegal, you know?
Yeah.
And so,
I got one on top of that. In Washington, when it first started with medical, we were allowed to have naturopaths.
Okay.
To create the subscription. Like that was enough right there. Like if you're a naturopath, like, which I believe in holistic. We all need the holistic option first before we go to like pills and stuff. But and then of course in the revise of the law, which killed our medical law here, is when they rewrote it and said your primary care caregiver. That was the one that now you have to have a degreed doctor willing to put his name and job at risk. You know, California went through that in the beginning. Washington didn't have so many doctors being persecuted, but it's there.
So that's what I would recommend in whatever state Jade the Dreamer is in. Check your state's medical cannabis laws regarding who can prescribe, and that's the wrong word, recommend medical cannabis.
Yeah, it's out there.
Some people in the comments, Nick and Canamagoat, are talking about whether or not Illinois can actually have that. And so I'd have to pull up Illinois' medical cannabis law, and then I'd go into it and say, like, all right, who's allowed to write these recommendations? And then it'll tell me. And if we think that it should be amended, then we draft some language. We call our elected representatives, and then we say, hey, would you consider making these changes and sponsoring this amendment to that law? Because I think that more people should be able to write these recommendations.
Totally.
Yeah, good question. All right. Next one is from Scott Roberts. Scott Roberts is a real happening cannabis lawyer out of Michigan, managing attorney at Scott Roberts Law. All right, let's talk about there's a little speculation. Over/under numbers on lawsuits over the first wave of dispensary approvals / denials. I would handicap that at 200 lawsuits. Well, okay, here's how the handicapping works. And so all these people are going to get into these ties. And I got to find it to see whether or not it's just like Article 18 that didn't get passed. So all these people are going to get into these ties for their cannabis licenses. And then they go into a lottery. And that lottery is way more difficult to claim that you shouldn't have been, you should have won or you shouldn't have won, because it's not a score. It's a random number generator, and you got in. Now, what if you should have gotten into the lottery? Maybe then. So if you didn't get into the lottery and you do a grading and you do a review of your grading, and then you say, hey, these points, we should have gotten those points.
Yeah, but didn't you see there was thousands of applicants per that already submitted? So there's what's the cap? What's the maximum?
75.
So there's 75 licenses, and there's 1,000 people fight for that?
There's 700 teams fighting, and they applied 4,000 times.
Jesus.
4,000 times.
So at least 500 lawsuits?
Again, I don't know, because it's more difficult to argue that you were wronged if you lost the lottery as opposed to if you didn't get into the lottery. So if you didn't get into the lottery, I could see them saying, okay, now you actually need to sue so that you can say that I should have been in that lottery, and that you deprived me of my chance to win this license. So just give me one. Just settle for a license. And then we'll see how that works. But I think there's going to be less lawsuits because of the lottery and the ties. There's still going to be lawsuits. And then there's going to be lawsuits not just against the state. The teams are going to start fighting with each other, and there's going to be lawsuits amongst the teams.
For the lottery, are they is there some sort of modern day method, or are they just going to put all the names in a ball and then shake it up and then pull the name out? You win.
I'm not sure. We'll have to see what the state comes up with. It wouldn't surprise me either way if it's electric or if it is B6.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Yep.
And then we've got Jim Breeze.
Jim Breeze, the marketer from Green Growth CPAs. Great guy, makes excellent YouTubes. If you have not subscribed to Green Growth CPA's YouTube channel, you should. Wonderful presentations by Jim. So what are your thoughts on class action lawsuits against public cannabis / CBD companies pertaining to their financial disclosures being potentially misleading, inaccurate, or incomplete? Ooh, yes. As a corporate style lawyer that's probably going to be doing what they call private placement memorandums and securities law, that makes me just go, what's my malpractice limit again? Because with malpractice limits, you never want to do anything that's going to be in excess of them, as you then might be personally liable. And so I would be nervous about whomever the attorneys were that did these. These were probably, they're called PPMs, they're private placement memorandums. So if you and I had a company and we wanted to start raising some money, we need $10 million for this company. It's going to generate $35 million a year, but we need 10 to get it off the ground. So you go to a lawyer like me and I'm like, all right, tell you what, we'll do your entire private placement memorandum. It's going to be a fairly thick stack of documentation. There's going to be a business plan in there. There's going to be your operating agreement is going to be in there. The entire story of your company and the stock, and it's not really stock if it's a membership interest in an LLC, but it's an equity interest in your company offering. And you're going to make all these promises and you're going to make all these representations, and then somebody's going to sign on the line and cut you a check. And then That's when you have to be worried, because if that person doesn't get their money back, they might say, okay, well, let's see how we can get our money back. Is there a lawyer out there that drafted this private placement memorandum? All right, well, that lawyer has malpractice insurance, and I'm sure that he doesn't walk on water, so he screwed something up. Go find whatever you can find in this private placement memorandum that says how you got, why whatever you did was a violation of your fiduciary duty as a lawyer, and therefore we should sue you for malpractice and get all your statutory limits or whatever your limits are under your malpractice cap. That's where I want to help my teams by drafting these, but then I would also on the front end make sure that I have as many waivers as possible. And then second, on the back end, I would probably also partner with somebody who is more skilled in securities laws as a mentor to guide me through a few of them while I cut my teeth. And then I would also say, and the other reason I want you to do that is, let me talk about your malpractice limits. Because if this guy goes out there and raises $10 million and I'm only insured for $1 million, I don't want a $9 million judgment against me. Yeah.
But as the person suing the CBD company, right? This is in a case of like a CBD company not being profitable, period, right?
Well, they were lying to their investors. So it's a class action. It's exactly the type of problem where, if I created the private placement memo or whatever, the CBD company or whatever, High Times, for example, because High Times was doing that. I haven't seen that investment chicanery with High Times lately, but I haven't been looking. And so if I would have done those financial and then also that legal documentation, that legal product, to be able to allow them to solicit and then also to raise those funds, whether it's through Reg D, 5 or 6, depending on whether or not they're accredited investors or whether or not you have a previous relationship with the person, or under Reg crowdfunding. If I would have drafted all that paper, I would be worried because I'd be like, oh crap. And then I would, of course, turn around and be like, well, look, I'm just a lawyer. You lied to me. Kind of like the old accountant thing. It's like, those numbers were what you gave me and they were right. And, and so now you have the lawyer suing the client. You have the investors suing the client and the lawyer. You have a whole cluster. And so I would need to review these class actions to see whether or not the plaintiff in them have standing. And then also I would have to see just how misleading, inaccurate, and incomplete these suckers were. And then I would have to see what firm was on that and be like, wow, they really didn't do their job on this one. Hopefully they checked their malpractice insurance before they put out that steaming pile of crap.
In the case of the CBD issue, though, this is something that's kind of representative of the medical industry out here in Washington back in the day, where a lot of people tried to do all the right things with lawyers. They had the business license, the affirmative defense and everything. And then, of course, the federal government does what they want to do, and they lost. And then it became well, it's your fault. You told me, no, you tried your best. I mean, lawyers aren't they don't have swords and shit to defend everything. The federal government does what it wants.
There's that, but then lawyers are like doctors. Some are really good. Some stink on ice.
And when, how many plants will New York and Canada allow?
Let's see here. New York, recreational marijuana. Now, you see, again, when we were talking to Elliot, great episode. If you haven't checked that one out, go watch our interview regarding New York cannabis laws with Elliot Choi. And so when we were talking to him, he did mention that there's two main competing plans. There's Cuomo's MRTA, the Marijuana Regulation and Tax Act, and then there's Senator Kruger's CURTA, which is the same thing in Illinois, the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act. However, how many will? Oh no, I'd have to do. I went to one of those, newspapers, and then newspapers make you do
paywall.
No, that it's a paywall, but it's one that you can do. It's basically a survey. Do this survey, you can read this content. But what you would do is you'd look at the CURTA and the MRTA, and then you would say, all right, well, this one allows this and that one allows that. And for me, I would have to say, which of the following psoriasis treatments have you had? None. Next. Okay, now I can actually read it. And so how many?
I got Canada's answer.
What's Canada's?
So, according from the CA website, 4.
4 plants per person, per household?
It says here, let me just make that bigger. Control plus. Growing cannabis. At-home permits up to 4 cannabis plants per household, not per person.
Wow.
That's interesting.
All right. Let me, I'm going to bring up the CURTA. Oh, wait, no, that's the MRTA. Sponsored by Liz Kruger. Okay. Bill and amendments. Let's look at the, I want to actually see the text of the bill. Oh, there it is. Download PDF text. Okay. And now I can share my screen. And here is the one from Senator Kruger. So this one would be the CURTA. And then we can zoom into it. And this came out January 15th of 19. So let's look for plants. Cannabis beans all part of that plant. How about plants cultivation? Still 19 of them. Oh, a nursery. That would be nice. A nursery license. Let's see. Amount of plants. Cultivate. Home cultivation. Here it is. Buried on line 51 of page 30 of the MRTA is notwithstanding this provision of section AT blah 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 6.
That's the average.
6. Plant, cultivate, harvest, dry, process, or possess no more than 6 mature cannabis plants at one time. And so there you go. But that's actually a lot. 6 is a lot. And then they did something. Mature cannabis plants. What is a mature cannabis plant?
Probably with buds. You think? Flowering buds?
I still don't like how they say mature cannabis plants, but yet they don't restrict it to females.
Oh, good point.
I think it should be 6 female cannabis plants.
But, we're still weighing brownies and calling that the weight of goddamn what they're.
We aren't. The cops are.
Well, you know what I mean.
The lawful producers are actually making a disclosure on it, and they have
Oh, we got a question from Tyrone Collins.
5 milligrams. And these are now gone. They were delicious, but they're 5 milligrams. And so each one of those mints had 5 milligrams. And so I'm sure that mint might have weighed a gram, because it's got a lot of sugar and minty stuff and crap in it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So if the cops, weighed that as a gram, even though it's advertised 5 milligrams, I think that's highly disingenuous. But,
Hey, here's a good question from Tyrone.
Does the state of Illinois have a listing of all the approved social equity applicants? No, they do not. In fact, the state of Illinois is still issuing 10-day notices to social equity applicants or other applicants for the dispensary. They're still grading the dispensary applications. And it was an anonymous, confidential process. And so the winners, I believe, will all be social equity applicants, and they will post a list of the winners. And so then, yes, there will be in the not too far distant future, in approximately 1 month, they will have posted the winners, because then we're going to have knowledge of who is actually going to be operating and not.
Hey, you've answered number 7 before.
I've answered number 7 before, have I? Let's see. Well, let's get to number 7 anyway. Let's go to it. Do you see Illinois changing the law that makes medical patients pick to one dispensary to use? Yes, and it's already been drafting, and it just didn't get passed, and so it may still become the law this year in Illinois at the veto session if that Senate bill that was amended and had a lot of other things, including Article 18 to the CRTA, if that gets passed. Yeah.
I'm going to kill this last name, and I apologize for Skylar Necht.
Skylar Necht.
Yes. Yeah, I'm assuming the K is silent like knife. But any good info on Ohio legalization? Because our friends, are trying. There's Free Ohio.
Free Ohio.
There's I don't know if that's going to pass because they're trying to do that whole open license or not open.
No. No, there's no the problem with theirs is that it's undercapitalized and nobody in the industry, because the industry is just like a greedy vulture that's looking for a new market, and so they would look at that and they would go, no. They would look at Illinois and say, yeah, because then competitive would be great, because then you see we've already been operating in all these other states. We're going to come off smelling of roses. But if it's just random lottery for 5 years and then they kick you out and they bring somebody else in, they would probably buy ads against that. Be like, no on 24,
I I think they need to focus on their medical legislation because, like I said before, Prop 215 with medical was the gateway to legalization overall. And if they were to just have a good medical program, the people they kind of calm down about the reefer madness attitude at that point, because the culture develops itself. People are smoking all around you. You don't even know it until one day you're like, oh shit, I didn't realize all my neighbors were fucking getting high. And then,
There's blowing into those toilet paper rolls stuffed with Downy dryer sheets. You ever see that in college?
Oh yeah, but I mean, like I said, we used to have dab bars here, man. We had farmers markets. There was a whole culture of people just fucking smoking every day, and parties and events, and no one batted an eye. No one knew about it. High Times, when they had a cup here, it was an amazing event. They had to do a separate smoking section because it couldn't be at the Coliseum, so it was across the street, and no incidences, no crime, nothing violent happened with thousands of people smoking and hanging out for a day.
All right, let's do one more question.
Yeah.
And then I want to, and it was in the comments, somebody, Sheepwork, cute name. If I have a medical card in Illinois and grow more than 5 plants, what's the penalty? You can find that. And that's in the statute. And then it's also in an amendment to another statute, the Illinois Cannabis Control Act. Normal maintains very good websites with charts on these for every state. I want to say if you go over your limits, it's a $200 penalty. But it depends, of course. Like if you're growing 5,000 plants, yeah, no, it's not going to work.
Do you guys have any wrongful arrests? We have here in Washington, up north, there was a medical patient. Him and his wife both were limited to 15 plants, and they had their amount, and they were still messed with by the sheriff up there.
Well, again, make sure that you use odor mitification. You don't want because I don't believe that the police have probable cause based on smell to search your house. It's like, oh, that smells like 6 plants. I could definitely smell the 6th plant, but comply with the law. Don't go over your legal limits. And so if you grow more than 5 plants, there is a penalty. I know that if you're an adult and you're growing 5 plants or less, it's a $200 fine. And so there's that, but I'm not sure if that's what it would be. Can I do plants in stages? Kinda, not really. You can have as many plants as you want under 5 inches or 6 inches, I want to say. And then after that, then you'd have to kill them, which I think is terrible. I think it should be the mature plants like they do in New York. I think it should be 5, maybe 6 mature female plants. And that's it. But then you could actually try to grow males for the purposes of making seeds for yourself. And, when you're trying to create strains though, with only 5 plants, I don't know, it's kind of tough. And so, okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Sheep work on that one. And now, how do I not show that? Okay.
You got a present, don't you?
I do. I have a present. Okay. Thank you for hiding that, Lauren. And the present is 2 presents. And so what I'm getting myself is some charity. And so I'm going to celebrate my 40th birthday by doing some pro bono hours like you're supposed to. If you're a good lawyer, you're supposed to do pro bono. It's not all about taking the people's money. It's about helping. And so there's 2 programs, and I'm not sure which one I want to assist a team with. I think either one is very, very noble, and I'm going to help one team with either of these. One of them is the R3 program, and the R3 program is one of the excellent, cool things in the Illinois cannabis law because it allows fixing the harms associated with the drug war. And I was on their webinar part 2 today, and essentially I would help a team write their grant. And so I would help that team write their grant, and then they would apply. The deadline is looming. The deadline is July 20th. And so there's service delivery, grants to provide services to repair the harm caused by economic disinvestment, violence, and the war on drugs. And then there's also assessment and planning, grants to develop a plan to address community concerns about poverty, safety, and well-being. This is something in the Illinois law that should be not just in Illinois, in Pennsylvania, in New York, and Washington State's one, and Missouri's, fixing the war on drugs. finding and going to these communities and restoring, reinvesting, and renewing these communities that have been disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs and poverty. These are traditionally the disproportionately impacted areas in the state of Illinois. One of the ways that you could have gotten your social equity aspect or your social equity points in your cannabis application. And again, I think we're going to have, over 90% of the winners, or all of the winners, I bet, that outside the transporter license are going to be social equity applicants.
Yeah.
So if I can't find a team that wants help drafting their grant writing, then I will help one qualified social equity applicant. This is going to be one of the people that wins the 75 license. I want to help them get their money from the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. These are the social equity cannabis loans. And this is another aspect that is excellent in the Illinois law, and it's built right into it. So who qualifies? It has to be social equity applicants, and then of course they tell them what the social equity applicant is, but they also have to be a qualified social equity applicant in the sense that they've won the license. Like, you really can't apply for this state money until you have your conditional adult use dispensary license. Once you get that, approximately 4 weeks, we're going to have 75 winners. And I want to help one of those 75 winners access their capital, or I want to help a team that's not necessarily related to cannabis, but is related to this R3 program. And I have a couple that I might call on, but then if anybody's watching this that did apply for their cannabis dispensary license and they've won, get in touch with me. I might still be looking for the right opportunity, because the R3 program I'm going to try, but there was only 10 people on that webinar today.
Wow.
That's it. So I'm trying to put the word out for the R3 program as well. Hey guys, there's money out there to help fix the war on drugs in the state of Illinois. Let's do it. Let's make this, let's show the other states how effective cannabis legalization can be for equity and also for prosperity in our communities. And so if I'm going to try to help a team with either getting their money because they won, or with getting their grant money because they have a great idea for the R3 program.
Nice. And we have a viewer who is a social equity applicant for the 2021 grafted lowers license, Tyrone.
All right, Tyrone, good luck out there, man. If you win, get in touch with me, and then I can help you and your team make their loan application with DCEO.
Hey, and Carrie Cannon says happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I am a 40-year-old man finally. Well, tomorrow, but still, yeah.
Yeah. No, it'll be good. You try not to get too hungover, though.
Yes, do not get hungover. After you turn 37 or something like that, you can't drink like you used to. And that's okay, because usually after you turn 37, you have a whole bunch of other priorities and obligations besides getting drunk,
Oh, no, you plan it. That's how it works. You're like, okay.
Oh, thank goodness. This is exactly what I wanted on my birthday. Destroy the cyst. We must.
Yeah.
Thank you, Master Yoda. Thanks for watching.
Dope. Right on, man.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, man. It's good. Good thing.
Well, let's bring Lauren on and let's kind of wrap up the show. All right.
That's going to do it for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. We got a lot of people commenting. Chris Precise, Nick Weiger, John Maddox, Andy Smith. Thank you all for watching, and thanks for commenting and celebrating Tom's birthday with us. Make sure you like and subscribe. We will see you on Sunday.
Hey, who do we got Sunday? Let's promote the show.
Yeah, this Sunday we have Sunny from Kush Kush. They're a grower out in Washington. So
yeah, growers are going to want to tune in. We got a good one on Sunday. It's I think he's a tier 3. Is that the largest one, Miggy, in Washington?
I confuse because it's like wires. I forget which one's the higher one or lower one, which is bigger. But yeah, I mean it's up there. It's still not a small operation.
No, it's an indoor. I looked at their website. They grow beautiful flower, and so have you tried the Kush Kush stuff?
No, but I'm excited to find out. And
all right, yeah, And then maybe what we should do on Sunday, we'll talk all about like the growing, the cultivation, and he's an Indian American, which is great. So it's also diversity in India. I mean, we score really highly in India because we did the show with Legalized India on.
Yeah.
And so it'll be excellent to see that aspect, but maybe like you can talk to him about, what type of flavors, what type of strains, and then get yourself a good recommendation from their repertoire.
Well, I might just show up at their place and take a little tour, some video. So.
Oh yeah, that'd be dope.
I love that. I love that. All right, guys. Well, if you do want to get me another birthday gift, you can head on over to shadyhousepub.com and pick up your copy of Satan Smoke. I'm going to go. Actually, I have another meeting that starts in 5 minutes. After that meeting, I'm going to go to the post office.
All right, we'll see you on Sunday.
See you Sunday.